If tonight were the last meal of your life, who would you share it with? That question came to me on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday night. A small question from a stranger sitting across the table in a quiet late-night diner. And no introduction. No clear intention, just a gentle look, a warm voice, and a question that made my heart skip a beat. I smiled at first, thinking he was just making small talk. But he didn't smile. He simply took slow sips of his chicken soup, eyes gazing into the distance. As if he had asked himself that same question many times before. I wanted to answer, but stayed silent. Not because I didn't want to speak, but because I didn't know what to say. I realized it had been so long since I truly thought about having a meal with someone. About love, connection, presence. My days were filled with work, bills, and the endless task of just getting through. That question was like a soft breeze, blowing apart everything I thought I had neatly put in place. It reminded me of a letter I never sent, a hug I never gave, a name I deleted from my phone, but never from my heart. That night, I walked into the diner with an empty soul, but I walked out carrying a question that changed the rest of my life. I couldn't sleep that night. The stranger's question echoed in my mind like a soft, lingering melody. Who would I share my last meal with? Why couldn't I answer? Why did that simple question ache so deeply in my chest? I thought of my mother, the woman who raised me with packets of sticky rice and bowls of water spinach soup soaked in quiet tears. I thought of my father, the man who first taught me how to love through silent hugs and calloused hands. I thought of an old friend, someone I once loved, but lost in the tides of life, all because I stayed silent once, and they never came back. As so many faces floated through my thoughts that night, people I once cherished, drifted away from, or simply forgot in the busyness of life. And I realized, we don't lose each other because of the big things, we lose each other in the small ones. A call we didn't return, a dinner we declined because we were too busy, a hug we thought we'd give next time, but sometimes there is no next time. I remembered the look in that man's eyes when he asked me. It wasn't just a question. It was a gentle reminder, soft, yet profound, that life is fragile and love should never be left unfinished. I wish I could turn back time. To say thank you to my mother more often. To hug my father tighter, just once more. To tell that friend, I missed you more than I knew how to say. But time doesn't rewind, only the heart still has time to return. The next morning, I sat by the window, just like every other day, but this time, the cup of tea in my hands wasn't just a habit, it was a gentle reminder. I'm still here, I'm still alive, and I still have a chance to do something differently. The morning light filtered through the leaves and slipped past the dusty window pane, casting soft golden streaks like memories across the room. I rested my hands on the table, feeling the warmth of the wood, the tea, and my own heartbeat steady and quiet. For the first time in a long while, not because of stress, but because of longing, I realized perhaps the most heartbreaking thing in life isn't losing someone. It's realizing we never truly lived with them while we had the chance. There were walks I once refused, saying, maybe next time. Dinners I missed, hiding behind the excuse of work. Moments I let slip away because I thought there would always be more time. But time is silent, and while I stood on the shore, life flowed past like a river I never stepped into. Now, with silver in my hair and a weariness in my bones, I understand. Love never disappears. It only hides quietly, waiting for us to open that little drawer inside our hearts. I picked up my phone. The screen lit up. Names I once knew by heart now felt distant, blurred by time, but my heart remembered them clearly. I placed my hand over my chest and took a deep breath. I was afraid not that they wouldn't answer, but that I might not have the courage to say, I miss you. I'm sorry. I still hope to see you again. I sat there for a long while, in the silence between the ticking clock and the birdsong outside, I came to understand something simple, but essential. We don't live just to work or to check things off a list. We live to love to connect and to forgive not just others, but ourselves too. If today were the last day, then what? I wouldn't want it to pass in silence. I'd want to hear laughter even if late to make a phone call, even if my hands tremble to schedule a lunch, even if we don't know if there will be another. Because sometimes the most precious thing in life isn't what we've achieved, but the moment we finally turned around and chose to love one more time. I made the call. My hand trembled as it hovered over the screen. As if a single touch could unlock all the memories I had hidden away for so many years. The ringtone echoed steady, unhurried. Each ring felt like a knock on my chest. Not the sound of a phone, but the echo of things left unsaid, a silent apology never voiced. A missed embrace. A moment I turned away when I should have stayed. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, waited. And then, the ringing stopped. It went to voicemail. And no one picked up. There was no shaky voice on the other end. And no soft hello I had imagined 1,000 times. Just silence, a silence so still. It pressed against my ribs. I put the phone down and sat there, unmoving for a long while. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It was more like a quiet emptiness, like standing at a once familiar door, knocking gently and knowing no one will ever open it again. But in that stillness, something strange happened. I didn't feel anger or regret or blame. I felt softer. Maybe, for the first time in years, I truly listened to myself. I didn't call hoping to be forgiven. I called to touch a part of me I had forgotten. The part that still feels, still remembers, still waits, and still longs to be loved gently. That night, I wrote a line in my journal. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't being answered. It's the courage to call. Open your heart. Face the tenderness you've hidden away. I had made the call, and it wasn't just a call. It was a small step, but enough to forgive myself. For all the days I lived without really living, for all the silences I kept out of fear, and for this moment, when I finally spoke the truth, even if no one heard it. I don't know what made me pick up the phone that night. Maybe it was the sudden rush of nostalgia after a dream without form. Maybe it was the warm yellow lights in the kitchen that reminded me of those distant meals with my mother's laughter. Or maybe it was because my heart was too weary from the silence, from the distance, from all the things left unsaid. I held the phone, hesitating for a long time. My finger trembled as I dialed the number, as if just touching it would make the past come flooding back. I thought I had forgotten my mother's voice, but in reality, it was still there somewhere deep in my memory. Never really gone. The phone rang. 1, 2, 3 rings, and then a soft voice came through. Hello? Slow, fragile, but it was still that voice. The voice that once lulled me to sleep on rainy nights, the voice that always reminded me to wear a warm coat when the weather turned cold, the voice that said its final words before I turned my back. She didn't ask where I had been. She didn't blame me for my silence all these years. She didn't bring up the hurts, the anger. She simply said, "Have you had dinner?" When I heard that, I couldn't hold back my tears. I had always thought that if there ever came a day when Mom answered the phone, I would say so much. I would apologize, explain, try to do something to erase the distance between us. But in that moment, all I could do was remain silent and cry. We didn't say much. That call lasted no more than 10 minutes. Mostly, there were silences, a sigh, the sound of dishes gently clinking together on the other end, a few simple questions, a few short responses. But in that silence, I felt something magical. My heart lightened, as if the heavy backpack on my shoulders had been set down, as if I no longer had to pretend to be okay. Just one simple question. Have you had dinner? was enough to make me feel still loved. It turns out, healing isn't about grand apologies. It doesn't need long conversations. It doesn't need tear-filled hugs. Sometimes, it only starts with sincere presence. A phone call, a voice, a dinner that no one sits with, but someone still remembers. That night, I made myself a simple meal, a bowl of vegetable soup, some hot rice, a few pieces of fried eggs. I placed the phone on the table so Mom could sit and eat with me, even if only through her voice. The meal had no words, but to me, it was the most complete meal I'd had in years. And perhaps, for the first time in all that time, I ate without tasting bitterness, no longer feeling the loneliness surrounding me, no longer with that vacant stare into the endless void. It was just a meal, but it truly changed my life. I don't quite remember how I said goodbye at the end of that call. I just remember sitting there for a long time, staring at the now cold dinner. And strangely, something inside me began to feel warm again. Not every crack needs to be mended right away. Not every distance must be filled with flowery words. Sometimes, just one small moment of connection, no matter how brief, is enough to begin the journey back. I started calling my mother every week. First once, then twice. We didn't talk much, just little stories about ordinary days. She would tell me it rained today, and that a sparrow flew into the porch. I'd tell her I dreamed I was a child again, resting in her arms. And no drama, no tears, just presence and patience. Sometime later, my mother sent me a photo. It was of her hen, now wrinkled and fragile, holding the handkerchief I had once left behind many years ago, along with a simple note. I still keep this. I cried, not out of regret, but because I finally understood real love never disappears. It may fade with time. It may be buried under pain, but if we return gently, honestly, it will open again, quietly, tenderly. That dinner didn't just change my life. It opened a door, a path back to myself. Memories. A mother I thought I had lost forever. I learned that healing never comes from grand gestures. It starts with something small, a moment of truth, a quiet kind of listening. If you are carrying unspoken distance in your heart, if you are waiting for a reason to begin again, please remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. And sometimes a simple question like, "Have you eaten yet?" can be the key that unlocks something truly magical. Because all of us deserve a way back.